I'm Hannah Harnick, and this is Cultural Diplomacy, Ukrainian Voices in the World. This is second special edition in English. The first edition, we spoke about imperialistic propaganda and how it affects us and how do we recognize it. Today, we speak about empathy and compassion and message that would unite people in the world, in mass media, and not only. Stay with us. And we have a very, very special guest, scriptwriter, principal lecturer in charge of directing and scriptwriting at Arcada UAS in Helsinki, Finland. He's also a film scholar, researching empathy and compassion. Hello, Jan. I'm happy to see you here.
Hello, Hannah. I'm happy to be here.
So as I already mentioned, this is Jan Nels, and we once talked about the future, about our feelings that we evolved from 90s till nowadays, and how it is imposed on people and how it provokes people to act. Jan, can you tell us more about your path and how did you end up in helping Ukraine?
Yeah, I grew up in Helsinki in the 1890s, and as you and your audience will know, is that was a time when everything seemed to be going towards the better in history, and with the fall of the Soviet Union and everything. So I remember me and my friends, we felt like it was we didn't need to be political, and we didn't need to have strong opinions about world events, because everything was going to work out fine. And we were a very sort of careless generation, and I feel that it has been a big shift in myself and my friends, is that we had to reevaluate this and to start paying attention again to world events. For example, what is happening in Ukraine, and that has of course been a big sort of wake up call for us in Finland.
Do you think that it was the message from media, or it was more the message from your friends who visited Ukraine, or maybe your own experience? What was the most powerful motivation for you to feel, compassionate to something that is not going on directly with you?
Yeah, I think that I have a background in journalism, and I really follow the news closely and everything. But even though it's a sort of daily thing I do, I think the most strongest signals I get is and I have gotten is from my close friends. And for example, one of my oldest friends is a war correspondent, and he went to Ukraine in 2014 to Donetsk, and I remember I was at a small party in Helsinki, and he came back, and he had just come back from Ukraine, and I could see that something had changed in him, that there was something that had, and he showed us pictures of soldiers and where they lived and how their conditions, and I think it was the first time I ever really heard about the conflicts and the wars in Ukraine, and this had a big impact. And I remember after that we often talked about Ukraine, and also another friend of mine went to Kiev at the beginning of or in the middle of 2022 or 23, and he came back and also was very shook up and talked about all the people that he met there. And I just feel that this is more real than the news events that we see on our screens every day. Just personally, this has more effect and impact on me.
You study empathy and compassion in mostly film industry, right? But why do you think we might become more compassionate and feel more for heroes in film than for heroes in real life, or for someone who is the hero of mass media, probably like some short story? What do you think is the difference, and how to make it, maybe what can we change about mass media that would make them more human?
It's a big question, and a good question. Well, I think like the easy answer or the short answer is maybe that that when you meet characters, fictional characters, for example, in film and feature films, then those characters are sort of they show their essence and their sort of deepest humanity in a very short period of time, because they have been scripted by scriptwriters and filmmakers have chosen the right actors to play them and everything, so that they are sort of a fast path to a certain character's inner being, so to speak. Whereas we all know that when we watch the news, the characters are sort of missing. Not all the times. Some characters are very well portrayed. For example, Zelensky is a very sort of well-known character in the Western media, and we sort of think we know him, but other than that, the people are always oftentimes missing, and that is maybe one reason why it's easier to empathize and feel compassion with characters that are, for example, in fiction films.
Do you think that's why Obama, we can really challenge him as a president for some decisions, but every time when he would, well, maybe not every time, I might not follow all of them, but quite often when he would make a speech, he would address his wife, he would say some jokes, he would show their human relationships. Do you think that was part of this, like creating the character and make people feel for him as a human, like follow his story and feel more compassionate to him, maybe?
Absolutely, and Obama is a great example. I mean, he was is one of the most skilled communicators in politics anywhere. I mean, he's so brilliant at it, and I think what you describe is oftentimes that he was not afraid to show his weakness and humanity in his role, and that is always appealing, that if you have somebody who is very powerful like Obama or Zelensky, and they at the same time they show their weakness and their vulnerability, then it is in many research it is proven that then it is easier for us to feel empathy and compassion with that person. So that is one thing that is for example, uniting Zelensky and Obama in this respect. Yeah.
Do you think Trump is doing the same, just in a different way, trying to make some sort of people relate to him?
Yeah, Trump is a different animal, I think. He is one that never portrays or wants to portray weakness, and it of course appeals to his followers and his voters, I guess. That is one. It's a very different kind of strategy, and he's more. If you would compare it to sort of fiction, the world of fiction, he's more like he tries to be like a superhero that has no weakness. He's like a character in a I'm sorry to say, quite a boring and bad film, but yeah. That is
So
that is just my opinion. I mean, I know that many people vote for him and think that he has a lot of answers. I don't know.
yeah, I've got a lot of questions like when he was just elected, like, oh, but now he's gonna help, and I'm like, what makes you think so? But
Yeah.
he's like, no, and then you ask the person, what makes you think so? And they cannot really actually make any proper argument about that. So it's mostly the feeling
Yeah.
that they
Exactly. Yeah.
feel he might. So it's
Yeah.
not here, it's here, which is mostly the populism, the address, this
Yeah.
part. Uh, mhm.
But just a point on that, I think the one that thing that unites sort of, for example, Obama and Zelensky and Trump, on the other hand, is that that these are powerful persons in positions of power, but they display something that breaks the normative pattern of being in power. In Trump's case, it is often that he says the thing that's not usually you're not allowed to say. That he is like the person in a school class that stands up and says the forbidden thing, the thing that you're not supposed to say, and that is also appealing. That there is a person in power that somehow breaks the rules. Whereas, as we concluded, that, for example, Obama and Zelensky are more willing to show their vulnerability and their sort of human side. But it's a difference.
But they all broke rules in some point. So actually, really, that's a very good point. We can relate to that. For example, Zelensky broke the dress code rule to make war more visible and more present in lives. So it was part of the visual and of telling the story, which makes me come back to what we talk, that still your own experience and actually the experience of many other people was that they could relate to Ukraine and Ukrainians and the war thing much more when they were there or someone was there and they could see the real, something real from there. What do you think we could, I don't know, add to? I mean, I like the speeches of the Zelensky, and when he's an actor, he can speak good, and when he has the chance, he actually delivered the message. And I'm not going to discuss at the moment that if he's doing everything right, because it doesn't matter for the purpose of this talk, but he delivers the message. But quite often it's not him, it's not the Ukrainians themselves who, portrayed it or filmed from exactly the, the very actual reality of them. But the other thing is that people got tired of war, even in Ukraine, quite often. And how do we create those messages that make people relate to those things without we have to be very gentle with them, because not to tie them too much, not to scare them too much, but to appeal to something. It's sometimes really, really hard. And mostly mass media do not do that job. So what do you think could be done? Exactly, in mass media, in film industry, it's different. But I would really love to apply your research and your skills to this sphere. What could we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it has a lot to do with the portrayal of the characters of the people in this case in Ukraine, and to sort of show them as complex human beings, not as sort of only victims of war or other terrible things, and not also. I think it's also like not so interesting if they are shown only as heroes, because then it becomes a sort of like this kind of fairy tale that you don't really relate to. That I think, in my own experience and my own research, I think that people always relate to other people, and what we really sort of are looking for is a sort of identification, that you recognize something in the people you meet, also in mass media, and that is why that oftentimes we get so hung up on these politicians, for example, because we see them all the time, and we gradually get to know them. But the people that are in these short video, like news stories, they are so fleeting. They are just a couple of seconds in the frame, and we never get to know them, and then it's very hard to relate. So so that is why, for example, the example with my friends who had been to Ukraine, it is so much easier because I meet them in person, and I can see that they have been through something very meaningful and important in their lives, and then I can sort of understand them on a much more deeper level, and that creates a sort of understanding for also the situation in Ukraine and the people there. So it's a very sort of, I think you need to have something you recognize, and a lot of the times the effect of the news media, for example, is the opposite. It's something that you don't recognize, and it's something that's very different from your own experience of life.
So not victims, but not like superheroes, but just people who are fighting for their freedom, and probably the clear message of why, because sometimes they're like, why would you fight for a piece of land? And you're like, but there are people living on that piece of land, and now they are occupied. And also when you tell them about it, they came with a huge list of names that would be taken to FSB basements first, like activists, like Ukrainian teachers, etc. Then you actually saving people. It's not about just giving up the territory. It's much more, and Finland can relate to that, because 1/3 of it, kind of, I think it's 1/3 of territory is still occupied. And I met a girl from there who's, I for the sake of her, because all her family is still in Russia, but they live in Karelia, and they were almost forced to forget their language, and she almost doesn't speak Finnish anymore, but her grandparents were still, that was their native language. The family name was changed, the surname was changed, everything was changed for them, but they're still in the opposition, and they kind of still feel this resentment that they are not actually. And I was like, you're not Russian, do you understand that you're not Russian? And she's like, so it was like she was like, actually, yes. So I mean, she kind of knew that, but she still accepted her identity as Russian until I asked her, like, do you understand that you're not at all? And she was like, and I could see that in her eyes, and that was an amazing moment when she was like, yes, I think I'm not, And that's a tragedy, because we can see Ukrainian kids in occupied territories, occupied from 2014, learning Russian songs and dressed in Russian military uniform, and they are prepared as new citizens. And we can see ethnically Russian in Ukraine, who are wonderful citizens, some of them not, who voluntarily went and joined the Ukrainian army, who fight for Ukrainian freedom. So it's about, again, upbringing, what system of values you get and what messages you get while you grow up, mostly, but also as a grown-up. So coming back to powerful messages from mass media, because they form, even if we don't listen to them. Do you think I'm right or wrong when I say, like, even when we tell ourselves, I don't believe any mass media, which I think is as stupid as believe everything, but even the people who say, I don't believe them, I don't listen to them, they still hear with a side air a lot of messages, and they might not even know where they come from. So what do you think? Yes, please go on.
I think you're right that there's a lot of like these kind of meta narratives, like these kind of bigger stories that are being told to us, that we sort of we get, even though we don't actively follow mass media, and some of them are very powerful. Like, for example, like, as long as I can remember, there has been conflict in the Middle East. So that is sort of like one of these meta narratives that I've been sort of underneath, like all the day-to-day news items. I've been told that this conflict will never end. Like this is one thing that I've sort of learned through mass media. And other stories is that, for example, that the United States of America is the most powerful country in the world, and this has been told in
And the most
sort of,
democratic.
yes, exactly, and that this has been told through like thousands and thousands of news items through mass media over and over again, and this is very, and of course through fiction films as well, and everything. But but this is sort of these kinds of strong meta narratives are also much more powerful than these kind of short news stories. That this can go on for like 20 years or 50 years, and it's interesting that it seems like we are now living in a world where some of these are a bit changing. Like for example, our views on the United States and stuff like this is perhaps changing in parts of the world.
Yeah, well, they really made it. We didn't want to change our view on USA for quite a long time, and we gave them some
exactly.
credit.
Yeah.
Because the narrative was quite powerful about their democratical system of values and about their power in general. And now we can see something different, and it's like breaking our world, because it was based on that. It was one of the pillars of the international legal security system, like the power of USA. Like if they were the NATO as an international policeman, that still doesn't work now when the law is breaking and the police is still talking instead of, you know.
He sort of left the city. Yeah. No, it's an interesting time and a terrible time in many ways. But also I would say that it's important also to remember that these are not the truth. It's not like the world is not exactly like that. These are also stories manufactured by somebody over and over again. And that's why I come back to this idea that do your own work and be active and talk to people that have actually some sort of first-hand experience of things, and that's something that is very powerful and can also sometimes break these kind of strong narratives that are maybe false.
Would you like to write a story, a script for like a film about Ukraine, the war, anything related to that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the short answer is yes. I think it would be amazing. Again, I'm a bit respectful of such a question also, because my knowledge of Ukraine and the war is still quite limited, actually. So I will visit Ukraine in the coming months for the first time. So I will learn a lot of new things and meet a lot of Ukrainian people. So I will have to get back to you on this question.
Oh, I would love to get back to you, searching for an answer. It was lovely to see you today. The only thing I wanted to mention in the end was that 100 years ago, Eino Leino, right, the wonderful Finnish writer, he wrote a poem, Terve Ukraina. Yes, as a like glory to Ukraine, or hello Ukraine, and that was a support of the Ukrainian People's Republic that proclaimed their independence in 1918 from Russian Empire. And that song is about Ukraine, you're inspiring us. And that inspiration was quite strong since you won the war with a huge monster that was Soviet Union, and it was just 20 years later. So I think that our connection of Finnish and Ukrainian people, understanding each other, understanding the monstrous propaganda that we have to deal with, is one of the pillars of our connection and understanding of what's going on. So I thank you for your support. We haven't even talked about that, but just telling you in a short way to the audience, Jan and his friends, they are forming, they have gathered a lot of donation. They bought the evacuation, the medical equipment, ambulance car, and they are gonna get it to Ukraine soon. So he's not just talking about empathy, he's actually doing that acting on that feeling and on and acting very powerfully. So I thank you for that, and I hope we can hear that song in the very end if it works technically. We'll see now. We'll discover it. I thank you, Jan, for coming.
Thank you.
I really hope to see you soon again.
Thank you, Hanna. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Ukraina kunniassuikoon, huutona huomenen valkenevaan. Voimasi lempeesi leimaus voikoon, vaatia maapapaa. Ukraina, nyt älä horju. Kerran se koittaa kansojen koin. Tyynenä vankana vaarasi torju. Tai jos on tarpeen, niin salamoi. Ukraina, kansojen suola. Sulla on lippu ja meillä on tie. Myötäs myrskyssä Suomi ja Puola. Viro ja Lätti ja Liettua lie. Eespäin Ukraina, et ole orja. Itse jos toivot ja tahdot sä sen. Kuulet, kun kuoron, suuron ja surjaa. Kun meri kansojen kautuvien. Uusi Ukraina, tenhoisa uhkee. Väljinä välkkyvät virtasi suut. Vapauden purppura kukkiin puhkee. Morppa groschen ja Permi ja muut. He valkaiset tie tasavaltaisen työn.